In this video, I'm going to show how you can integrate Wasabi with your Bubble application so that you can upload files to a Wasabi bucket and then download them later on. So you can see here I have set up a Wasabi bucket, and if I go into my Bubble application and let's say I want to upload these files here, I can simply drag them into my drop zone. The upload starts automatically and you can see we get this really nice progress bar here to show how much of each file has been uploaded. The video is taking a bit longer than the others, but once it's all complete, we're getting that message to let us know that the upload has been successful. If I go back into my Wasabi bucket and click on refresh, you'll see that we've uploaded our files and they're available to us here. I'm also going to show how you can download those files that have been uploaded to a Wasabi bucket. You can see here we have a list of files that are actually from our bucket, and if I click on the download icon here, we're going to download that file itself. If we open it up, we're going to be able to view it. Okay, so the very first thing you're going to need to do is sign up for a Wasabi account, and maybe just to take a second on why you would use Wasabi as a file storage solution. It's a lot cheaper than the standard Bubble file storage, so if you're building a real file-heavy app, it may be worth considering an external file storage solution, and Wasabi is definitely a good option. So they do offer a free trial, so I'm just going to click on this try free button. I'm going to fill out these details here quickly, and then I'm going to click on get started. Okay, just going to go to my email and click on the confirmation email. Okay, done that. Just going to put in a password here. And then finally, we just need to continue your trial, and you're going to be brought to the Wasabi console once we sign in one more time. Okay, so now we're at the Wasabi console. You can see here my trial is going to end in 30 days. I will be prompted towards the end of this period to upgrade to the paid service. You do have to pay a kind of small flat fee per month. I think it's about $6 or $7. And then afterwards, the storage prices are like really competitive compared to both Bubble's standard storage and also other solutions that you can go to. Okay, so I've now created my Wasabi account, and now we need to figure out a way to connect Wasabi to Bubble. And for the rest of this video, I'm going to be using the CT file uploader Wasabi plugin to do that. This is a Cran Protect plugin, and you can find it by going to add plugins and searching for CT file uploader. And I'm actually going to be using the plugin's demo app, which you can see here, as a kind of a basis for how to connect to Wasabi, how to upload files to Wasabi, retrieve them, and all that good stuff. And the good news is there's pretty detailed instructions here that you can reference if you want to, just kind of repeat what I'm doing here in this video or implement any of the other features that are available. You can see here there's a bunch of things, and we're going to go through some of them in this video. But the first thing we need to do is connect the plugin to Wasabi. We've already registered for a Wasabi account, but now we need to create a new user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my Wasabi dashboard. I'm going to click on users, and you can see we don't have any at the moment. So I'm going to click on create user. And for the username, I'm just going to say demo user. You'll see here we have two types of access: programmatic, where we create API keys, or console. And as you'll see in our plugins demo app, we want to use the programmatic create API keys option. And the reason for that is we're actually going to need API keys to integrate our plugin with Wasabi. And the way we get them is by picking that programmatic user type. So I'm going to click on that. We don't need to enable multi-factor authentication right now. I'm going to click on next. Okay, groups. We don't actually need to assign a user to a group. You can see here, you can choose to do so if you wish, but it's not necessary for our use case. So I'm going to click on next. But policies is really important because policies basically define what exactly the user who is using the programmatic access via the API keys, what they can do. And because we're going to be doing quite a few operations from our Bubble app with Wasabi, we're going to give the user we're creating here pretty extensive permission. And you can see here in our instructions, we want to add the Amazon S3 full access policy to the user. So we can go down here, and it's actually the very first one. So if we give that and then click on next, now when we create our user, they're going to have quite a broad range of permissions to upload files, to read files, to download files, and all the stuff that we might need when we're integrating Wasabi with our Bubble app. Okay, I'm going to click on Create User. And you can see here, I have an access key. And if I click on Secret Key and Show, I'm given a secret key. So these are pretty sensitive pieces of information, particularly the secret key. So I would not make sure these are safe, basically. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually in the background going to copy these keys to the clipboard, and I'm going to save them down somewhere secure of my own. And then I'm going to close this down. But make sure you keep a note of both the access key and the secret key, because as you'll see here, you will not be able to retrieve your secret access key again, and we're going to need it to add to our plugin in a minute so that the plugin can effectively communicate with Wasabi. So I'm just going to click on the copy keys to clipboard button again to be safe, and I'm going to make a note of these keys in the background. I'm now back in my Bubble editor on the CT File Uploader Wasabi plugin section, and if I scroll to the bottom here, you'll see we have 4 fields that we need to fill out. We have access key, secret key, access key dev, and secret key dev. Now, we don't have separate dev versions of these keys, so I'm going to take the access key I just made a note of, and I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to do the same with the secret key that I've made a note of. I'm going to put it in here and put the exact same one in here. I'm not going to show these keys just for security reasons, but this is where you put them in. So I'm just going to do that in the background. Okay, so I've done that and just X out of the pop-up where I was showing my keys. Now I'm going to close this, and we have our user created here, and we're going to use this user to connect to our plugin in our Bubble application. If we go back to the plugin demo page, you'll see we have created the user, we've noted the access key and the secret key, we've added these keys to the plugins tab in our Bubble editor, and now we need to create a new bucket. And we can use the default settings unless we have specific requirements, but I'm just going to go through step by step what you actually need to do to create a new bucket. You're going to need to go back to your Wasabi dashboard, and we're going to click on buckets here. And maybe I should just explain, buckets are essentially locations where we're going to store all our files. And if we click on the create bucket button here, we're going to need to give our bucket a name, and we're going to need to select a region. Now this may or may not be important for you. If you need to comply with very specific, regulations, maybe like GDPR, and you need to host your files in a certain region, you probably want to pick somewhere like, EU Central 1 or 2. If that's less of an issue for you, and let's say you're based in the US, you're probably better off picking a location that's actually closer to you, because all else equal, if the vast majority of your users are located in Texas, it's going to be quicker for them to, upload and retrieve files from the Texas bucket versus one of the others. So I'm going to pick London EUS 1. I'm going to click on next. We don't need to do anything in terms of a bucket versioning or object lock, nor do we need to do anything in terms of bucket logging. Object replication, again, nothing we need to do here. And tags, again, nothing we need to do here. So we can review our bucket and then create it. Okay, you can see we successfully created a new bucket. This is our list of buckets, and we've just created the one. If I click on the bucket name, you'll see here at the moment we do not have any files whatsoever in our bucket, but that is going to change soon. So let's go back to our plugins demo app. So we've now created a bucket, so we can actually get on to uploading files to Wasabi. And if we just go on to the next section, you'll see the first thing we need to do is set up the file drop zone. So if you've installed the CT File Uploader plugin, you're going to have access to this element here, which is the CT File drop zone. What I'm going to actually do is just create a new page. I'm just going to do some quick formatting here to add a group. And if we add our CT file dropzone element to this group here, users will then have the ability to actually drop files into the drop zone. So this is how they're going to, upload files to Wasabi. They're going to drop them into the drop zone, and then we're going to upload it to our Wasabi bucket here. I've just added this CT file drop zone, and you can see here straight away we're getting this kind of warning, and it's saying remember to fill out type of added files. And this is really important. You need to set the type of added files here to be equal to, if you scroll right down towards the bottom, dropzone file, CT file. So you've got to pick that. I'm actually getting duplicates here just because I have the test version of the plugin on this app as well, but you'll only have one. So dropzone file, CT file is what you need to put in there. And then we can specify a number of different things. We can allow the user to upload multiple files, or if we set this to no, they can just do a single file. We can limit the number of files that they're allowed to upload at any one time. So let's set this to 4, for example, which means that they're only going to be able to upload a maximum of 4 files. If you leave this blank, they can upload as many as they want. For the max file size in megabytes, we can set that. So let's say I don't want my users to upload any file greater than 20 megabytes. I put a 20 in there. If we left that blank again, they could upload kind of, much larger file sizes. Permitted file types can be really useful if you want to limit the type of files that can be uploaded by the end user. So let's say, for example, we wanted the user to only be able to upload PNG images. We'd put in .png. But then let's say we change our mind and we wanted them to be able to upload .png images, but also .svg. What we would do is we'd add a comma, a space, and then .svg. And you can add as many file types as you want there. If we leave it blank, which I'm going to do, then the user would be able to upload any type of file. So that's how we have it set up at the moment. There's also a bunch of styling options we can change here. I'm not going to go into these now, but you have a bunch of ways of changing the look and feel of your dropzone. But let's take a look and see what that looks like when we actually load it up here. Okay, so this is our dropzone. What I'm going to actually do is just change the height of that to, if we take off fit height to content instead of max height there of, let's say 300, and then just refresh our bubble app. Okay, and let's drop a couple of files in. So let me just remind myself of what I set on here. So we can upload multiple files. We can do up to 4 files, and we can do a max of 20 megabytes. Okay, so I have a bunch of sample files that I've set up here. And let's drop a few of these in now. So let's start off by just dropping in a simple PDF. So we drop this in, and nothing's really happened, or it doesn't appear as though anything's happened. In reality, this has actually been added to the file dropzone, but we don't know that, and it's not really, the best user experience if you add something to the file dropzone, but the user doesn't actually see it. So what I'm going to do to make it obvious that a file has been added is, let me just maybe put this over here, actually. Put this in the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a repeating group here. Let me just put in a bit of space between the two of these. And I'm going to set the type of content on the repeating group to be equal to dropzone file, CT file. Again, the first value that we set on this as well. And then what I'm going to do is, let's just set a max width, and this is 400 as well. Put this in the middle so it's kind of aligned with our dropzone. And I'm going to set the min height to 0, but I am going to set a min height on each row of, let's say, 80. Then I'm going to add a group to my repeating group. And again, we're going to set the type of content here to be equal to dropzone file, CT file. And it's going to be equal to the current cell's dropzone file. Let's just put some formatting on this. And it'll take up the full width. And now what we can do is we can add a text element, and we can say parent groups dropzone file, CT file, file name. So this time let's drop another file in. We'll again go with our simple PDF. We're still getting nothing there. Let me just check what's going on. If we look at our repeating group, of course. So for the repeating group data source, what we need to do is we need to set this source as CT file dropzone A, which is our file dropzone, its dropzone files. So now if we refresh one more time, and we add in our PDF file, you can see here we're getting the file name. And you might remember as well, we set a limit of 4 files that can be added. So let's just add another 1, 2, 3, 4, which will give us a total of 5 files. If we add in 4, what you'll see is that they were rejected. And the reason they were rejected is because we added in too many at one time. Whereas if I just add the 1, 2, 3, add these in, you can see they appear there. Now what you can do is you can let the user know why a specific file was rejected. And the way you can do that is if we use a special event that comes with the plugin, we can basically display a message up here saying your file was rejected because. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in an alert up here. And we're going to put it at the top of the page. And just give this a bit more space up here. And what we can do is we can say your file was rejected for this reason. And then I can say insert dynamic data, and I can say CT file dropzone A, and I can put in a rejection reason. And then what we need to do to trigger this alert is if we go to our workflow, we can say when the CT file is rejected by the dropzone, we can show a message in the alert box, and then we'll see that it was rejected. So let's try and add 5 files again and just see what happens, or even more, 6 files I think there. So if we add that, okay, your file was rejected. You can only upload a maximum of 4 files. So that just gives your users a bit of understanding as to why files may or may not be accepted by the file dropzone. Another thing you can do, and indeed I think I do this on the demo page here, is there's actually a repeating group that's been built here, but you can see when the count of files is 0, it's not actually been shown. So for example, if I drag all these in, then they start to appear. You'll also notice in this example here, it's a bit more built out in the sense that we have the file name, but we also have the icon. We also have this file size in kilobytes. So just to give you a sense of how that's built, if I go back to my index page, you'll see here in the design tab, we have a repeating group, just like we built a second ago on our own demo page. But what we've added here is we have the file name, but then we also have the file's size in kilobytes. We also have the parent group's dropzone files preview URL. So just depending on what type of file you add, you're going to get a slightly different icon. And then finally, like I said, on the repeating group itself, what I've done is I've said, look, if the list of dropzone files is count is 0, then this element is not going to be visible. So we're only going to see this repeating group if some files have actually been added to the dropzone. Maybe just going back to the dropzone that we put together ourselves, one more thing that I think can be useful is we've added this workflow action here to show a rejection message when files are rejected by the dropzone. But if we want, what we can do is we can also add in a alert when a file is accepted. So let's say if files are accepted by the dropzone, what we can do is let's copy this alert here. Let's just paste it in again. And this time we can say your files were accepted. Let's just use green to signify that, all is well. And then we're going to display that when files are accepted. So let's try that. And if we add in a simple file here, your files are accepted. So just a way of showing to the user that, yep, your files are accepted by the dropzone. You can obviously use that in a bunch of different ways, but I just find that to be a useful way of kind of letting them know that everything has gone as expected. Maybe going back to our plugin demo app here. So we've set up our file dropzone. So now we move on to actually uploading files to Wasabi into our bucket here. And there's actually 2 ways we can do this. The first way is the second files are accepted by the dropzone, we trigger the upload event and files are immediately uploaded. And then the second method is we want to upload files only when this button is clicked. So you may want the user to be able to see all the files like we had up here, and then when they're happy with them, they can click on upload. I'm going to start off with method number 1 here, so that files are uploaded immediately to the bucket once they've hit the drop zone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my demo page here, and we're going to use this when files are accepted by dropzone event. So we've already used it once here. I'm actually going to use it again. So we're going to say when CT file dropzone files are accepted by the dropzone, we're going to do two actions. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in the get pre-signed URL upload action to the workflow. So if we go here and we go down to plugins and we go to get pre-signed URLs upload, this is the first action we're going to need to add. And maybe just quickly to explain what a pre-signed URL is, it's basically a secure way of uploading files to your Wasabi bucket. You'll see here we have like an expiration, and this is meant to be in seconds, this value. And we're going to create a URL that will allow our users to upload files to Wasabi, and it's going to be valid for as long as we set this expiration value. So I've set 120 seconds. That means when we create a pre-signed URL, it's going to be valid for 120 seconds. It basically means that you don't, you can kind of only give access for a very small temporary period. Outside of that, if for some reason a bad actor got their hands on the pre-signed URLs, they wouldn't be able to use them. But anyway, let's get on with actually creating our pre-signed URLs. And you can see here there's a number of fields we need to fill out. The first one is the region, and this is the region that our Wasabi bucket is located in. So if we go back to our bucket, you'll see here our region is EU West 1. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to paste it in. You can see for our bucket name, we have called it CT bucket and then some characters afterwards. So I'm going to paste that in here. And then path. So this is an optional field. I'm not going to come on to it just now. But file names, that is really important because this is essentially going to be the name of the file that we're uploading to our Wasabi bucket. And you can see here it's names, it's not just singular. So it's a list of the names of files that we want to upload to our bucket. And fortunately, it's actually really easy. We don't need to go about, searching in our database or anything like that. We can simply use this CT file dropzone files. And then if we scroll down, we'll have each item's file name. And that's going to give us a list of file names that we can use to upload. Okay, so let's refresh our application. And let's add in these two files. And our files are accepted. And you can see here something's happening in the background, but the files haven't actually been uploaded or anything like that. Let's give that a second to complete. Okay, let's refresh our Wasabi bucket just to see if anything appears. And no, it hasn't. And the reason it hasn't is creating the pre-signed URL is only the very first step in uploading files. I say the very first step, there's actually only two, but you do need to do one more thing. And that one more thing is if you go down to element actions, and we go to upload files using pre-signed URLs, this is the one we need to use. And this is actually really easy to implement. All we need to do for pre-signed URLs is the result of step 1, and then the pre-signed URLs automatically get populated there. Okay, so let's try and upload our files again. If we go here, let's drag 2 of our files in. And you can see our files are accepted and something happened in the background there. Let's take a look at our Wasabi bucket and just refresh that. And you can see we have our 2 files here. We have our demo audio file, we have our demo Excel file. We can download them and take a look at them if we want. But yeah, that's how we upload files to a Wasabi bucket. Now, we uploaded our files and they're still here. This isn't a great kind of user experience. So what you can do is if you go back to your workflows on the demo page, we can use another event. And this event is going to be when all files uploaded, essentially. What we can do then is we can go to element actions and we can clear all files from dropzone. And if we wanted to, we could also display an alert again saying all files uploaded. I'm not going to do that now, but I will just show that the files will get cleared. And okay, I'm going to pick these 2 files again, and I'm also going to pick another demo PDF file. And I just want you to note the time here. So the original 2 files were uploaded at 7:57, whereas if I go back here and I upload these 3 files now. They're added, uploading in the background, and then once they're all uploaded, they're cleared from the repeating group. But if we refresh our bucket, and again remember the original time was 7:57 p.m., you'll see now the first 2 files are gone, and they're now being replaced by the next 2, and we also have the additional PDF file. So the reason I wanted to highlight this was because if you upload a file with exactly the same name to a Wasabi bucket, and there's already one there with that same name, it's going to override it. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, let's go back to our main demo app here, and we've already done the upload files immediately. We're now going to upload files based on a trigger, like a button click, and this is actually really simple. All we need to do is we need to add a button here. So let's do that. And look, I'm using a button for kind of demonstration purposes here. You could do a number of different ways of triggering the upload, but this is just kind of a common one, I guess. And let me just remind myself, fix width 400. And we're just going to say here, upload files. And when this is clicked, we're going to again go to plugins, and we're going to say get pre-signed URLs, and we're going to fill these out again. And what I might actually do is just take the one I did a second ago here, copy it, and go back just to save a bit of time. So we'll paste that in, and the file names are going to be equal to CT file dropzone A, its dropzone files, each item's file name. And then we're going to say upload files using pre-signed URLs, and it's going to be the result of step 1. And let's go back. Let's add in our few files here. Let's go for 2 of these this time, add them in. And I didn't actually stop the other event, so let me just do that quickly. So we're going to go to here, disable that workflow, refresh our application. And again, we'll add these 3 in this time. Files were accepted, but the upload was not automatically triggered. But now if I click on this upload files button, what we should see is the dropzone has been cleared, which suggests that the files have all been uploaded. And if we refresh our Wasabi bucket, we'll see that they're in there. Okay, so we've now gone over the 2 methods of uploading files to Wasabi. I do want to talk about downloading files, but before we get on to that, I want to go back to this section here, warming server-side actions, because you may remember a few minutes ago when I was triggering the upload automatically, it seemed to take quite a while to kind of run the workflow. And the reason is, if you read this here, I'll explain it, but the get pre-signed URLs action is a server-side action. What that means is that it's going to run on Bubble server. It's super secure. You should definitely be using that for uploading files to a service like Wasabi. But the downside is all Bubble server-side action, plugin server-side actions, they can have this cold start issue. Whereas if you run it for the first time in a kind of 10 to 15 minute period, it essentially needs to establish a connection with AWS, which is what all Bubble plugin server-side actions are run on, and it leads to that kind of annoying delay. But what you can do to avoid that kind of delay is the plugin comes with an action called warm up, and that essentially allows you to establish a connection with Wasabi on page load, which means you're never going to be subject to that cold start pause when you're running the action. So we're not actually going to see the effects of it here just because I've been running actions and the connection is pretty warm. But if I add a new workflow here and I say on page load, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to plugins and I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to use the warm up Wasabi action. I do need to specify a region, so I'm just going to use a region that my bucket is in, which is EU West 1. So I'm going to copy that. Then if I go back, I'm going to put that in there. And then I'm just going to paste that region in there. And now whenever the page is loaded, it's going to run this warm-up function, which is going to make sure that the connection is established. And it means that when the user either drops files in or clicks on the upload files button, whatever kind of scenario you've decided, the connection is already going to be there, and you're not going to have that nasty, 4 to 6 second pause at the start that you can sometimes get. So that's just a kind of UI tip, just so your users aren't waiting for a few seconds when they're uploading files. Okay, so let's go back to our demo app, and I do want to go on to, now that we've done warming server-side actions, I do want to do downloading files from Wasabi, but just while we're on the upload stage, I want to finish that part off by showing how you can show the file upload progress. So if your users are uploading large files, it's kind of nice to give them an indication of how much of the file has been uploaded, rather than them just kind of standing there waiting, wondering how much of the file has been uploaded, how much is left. So what we can do is we can add something to our app that basically lets you, and it's going to drop in a video file here, you can present them with this kind of loading bar here. So they know that, we're at this percent, there's this much left. That can be a kind of nice UI touch to add to your app. I'm just going to give you a sense of how I set that up. What I've done is, if I go here, and let's just go back to our index page. And let's go down here. So what I've done is, first of all, for the text element, I've added in parent group's dropzone file upload percentage. So that's just a number that's exposed for every file that's added to the dropzone. And then I've simply added this simple progress bar. It's actually from a plugin here. And that allows you to set a dynamic value for the percentage. And I'm just taking, again, the exact same percentage that I'm using in the text element here. So that's just a nice way to kind of show your users how much of the file has been uploaded. And you can do multiple files as well. So, let's say we wanted to upload these 3 files here. If we add that in, you can see we get the progress bar for all 3 of them. These 2 were much quicker because they're not very big files, whereas a video file takes a bit longer, it's a bit bigger. And you can see there the file has been uploaded to Wasabi. Now, let's get on to downloading files from Wasabi. So you can see here, and I'm actually using a different bucket, so some of these may not look too familiar, but what you can do is you can basically use this get presigned URL download action in order to download files from your Wasabi bucket. Let's go back to our demo app though, that's kind of useful. On the demo page, and let's add in a repeating group. We have one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to clear the expression. Oh, sorry, I think I did the group rather than the repeating group. So let's copy the repeating group. Let's paste it in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave the type of content to be dropzone file, CT file. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the data source. So that's now cleared. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just hide these elements for now. So not visible on page load. Perfect. Yeah, and get rid of that as well. Okay, so what we need to do is, if we look at our page at the moment, we're basically going to get like a blank repeating group. But what we can do is we can show all the files that are in our Wasabi bucket by using an action on page load. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, when the page is loaded, what I'm going to do is under plugins, I'm going to say retrieve files from Wasabi. And again, this time we need to set the type of added files to be retrieve file CT file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here, say retrieve file CT file. For the region, I'm going to go back to my bucket. I'm going to copy that EU West 1 in again, and I'm going to paste it in here. For my bucket name, I'm going to grab this here and paste it in here. And then path, I'm not going to go into that now, but that's more around kind of specific user folders and different ways of structuring it. But we're now going to retrieve the files from Wasabi on page load. And what we can do is we can use the result of this to display the files in a repeating group. So what I'm going to do for step 2 is I'm going to say display data or display list in a repeating group. The element is going to be the second one. So I want to make sure that's the right one. So I'll say is repeating group dropzone file. Let's just say download so we know which one is which. that one there. And then the data source is going to be the result of step 1. And of course, we actually set the wrong type of data on this repeating group. So let's go back. You can see at the moment I have dropzone file, CT file. What I should have done is set it as retrieve file because we're retrieving files from Wasabi. And then if we go back to our workflow, that should work. Getting an error here, so I want to check what that is. Yeah, we forgot to set the type of content here. So again, we did have it as dropzone file, CT file. Let's change that to retrieve file, and everything should work fine. Oh, clicked on that by accident. Let's delete that. Okay, so let me just go over that again. On page load, we're retrieving all the files from our Wasabi bucket, and then we're displaying a list of them in our repeating group. So let's look at our application again. You'll see here this time, give it a second. Yeah, we're getting all the files from our Wasabi bucket coming in there. Okay, so let's say now we want to download one of these files. What we can do is we can say design. Let's say that when the user, in fact, let's give it an icon just so they can click on that. Click on an icon here. Let's change it to the down arrow there. Let's change this to a row very quickly and space them out. And again, this is more about the functionality than the perfect kind of UI, but let's say when they click on this, what we can do is we can add an action, plugins, and last time when we were uploading files, we said we were going to get pre-signed URLs. This time we're actually going to get the pre-signed URL put download. So two very similar actions, just make sure you're using the correct one. So I'm going to click on get pre-signed URL download. Okay, so a bunch of fields to fill out here again. Let's get our region, which is EUS1. Copy that. And then we're going to get our bucket name, which is this up here. Path, we're going to ignore in this case. And then file name, this is actually really easy. We just need to get parent groups retrieve file CT file, its file name. Okay, so then once we have gotten our pre-signed URL, we can use the CT file uploader download file action to actually download the file. And what we can do is for the pre-signed URL, we simply do the result of step 1, and then pre-signed URL gets automatically populated in there. And then for file name, really simple. Again, we can do parent groups retrieve file name, just so we're keeping the naming consistent. Okay, so just go over that again. When we click on the download icon, we're creating a pre-signed URL for download. We're then using this download file action to get that pre-signed URL, and we're going to download the file. So let's refresh. Okay, we have our 5 files here. So let's download our PDF. So you can see there, the pre-signed URL was created. That's what that loading bar was. And then we download the PDF in our browser. And it's actually a very badly formatted PDF that I created for demo purposes, but just to show you that it is genuinely the PDF that's in our bucket. If we go back to our bucket and click on download as, let's just download it again, you can see that this is exactly the same. And we can do the same for our other files. So if we want to download our video file, that could be there. So yeah, that's how you upload files to Wasabi, and then you can download them. I would encourage you to look at the demo app because I've kind of built this so that it kind of has the best possible UI. It has all kind of extra details on how you can show users specific files they've uploaded, and also how you can delete files from Wasabi, among other things. But that's just an introduction on how you can integrate Wasabi into your Bubble app and not have to use the Bubble's kind of standard file storage. But hope that's been useful. If you do have any comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section below.